It's Gypsy, and we have finally made it to the Tower card. I know it's taking forever to get this series done, isn't it? Crazy, but you know, that's how it goes. I'm doing it now. The Tower card is card number 16. It is the 17th trump in the Major Arcana, and it follows the Death card very appropriately because it also has to do with, being wrapped up in the material world, where the devil talked about, falling victim to our vices or being trapped or being influenced by our impulses. The Tower is basically what happens when you get so wrapped up in things that you basically lose sight of, what's important, I guess, and the universe has a way of shifting things and getting your attention, and the Tower card is sort of a representation of that. In Rachel Pollack's book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom, she writes on page 118, I'm going to quote her, "The Tower is said to be the materialist conception of the universe, and the lightning, the destruction that comes to a life based on purely materialist principles." So, in simple people speak, if you get too wrapped up in your day-to-day crap, eventually the shit'll hit the fan, and that's what this means. So here is the Pamela Coleman Smith commemorative deck Tower card. And so we're going to go over the elements really quickly. I have so many cards to go through. I'm going to be kind of fast now because I have a lot of them. But I want to bring attention to a couple of basic things. First of all, we have a tower. So that's kind of an integral part of the Tower card. We also have, on here the top is kind of popping off, and we see kind of a crown-looking top, which is kind of cool. And then we have two people that are falling down out of the tower. They're head first, going towards the ground. Another thing I want to note here is that this tower is very entrenched in the earth. It looks like it's coming up out of like a rocky crag, or we'll see some cards that look more like trees, and so the roots are usually extreme, kind of like cypress trees or something. They're up out of the ground and things. We also have, and this is a unique aspect to this card, we don't see this a whole lot in most of the modern decks, but these drops of rain here, this, I don't know if you want to call it bits of rain, pieces of debris, whatever it is, but they're shaped like the Hebrew letter Yod, which is the first letter in the name for God. So that is also a thing to note. On one side there's 10, and on the other side there's 11. Again, there's not many cards that show that. There is one. I'm going to let you guess which one that is because it's the one that's most like the Pamela Coleman Smith version. We have fire shooting out. We're going to see a lot of fire in the Tower cards. Another thing that she notes in her book is that the people here are actually wearing red and blue, which is reminiscent of the Magician and the High Priestess. That's something that I think Arthur Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith kind of brought into this, because when we look at the earlier cards, you're not going to see that so much. We see a woman with a crown here, and she's falling, and then there over here, this looks like more like a man with his cape on, insinuating the Magician. So there are the major elements of the Tower card. So let's do like we always do and start out with the old cards, my reproduction decks. And so that is the Visconti and the Minchiati from circa 1450. Here's my Visconti deck. Now this one is, obviously came up much long. This one obviously came way ahead of the other one, but we see a lot of similarities, so we can see where Arthur Waite kind of preserved that original representation. You have the lightning actually coming in from an opposite corner of the Pamela Coleman Smith deck, but I noticed when I'm going through these, a lot of them match this one. They come in from that upper right-hand corner. So that's another little thing to note. I don't know that right or left has any significance. If you think it does, leave a comment below and let me know what it means to you. We have the lightning, we have the insinuation of a storm, like we had the clouds in the other cards. Sorry for the glare. I know these have gold on them. And then we have the tower cracking up here, breaking in the middle. And then you see this very strong base here. And then we have the grassy ground. So it's obviously there's a very strong connection to the earth, which brings in that whole materialistic aspect. You also have the two people falling, just as you did in the Pamela Coleman Smith card. That glare is just a beast. And so, you know, they do have on some red and blue, but it's really not. This is actually looks like two men, so I'm not going to say that it's necessarily linking to the High Priestess and the Magician. I don't get that from this one so much. Okay, and then we have the Minchiati. Now, the Minchiati is very different. It doesn't have the whole tower. You simply see a doorway here. Let me adjust my light so y'all can see. You see there's a doorway here, and there are people that are kind of coming out. So you get the idea that the tower is kind of going on up here. You still have the flames. You don't have the lightning so much, but it's like, where's this fire coming from? You know, is that hand of God thing like we see with the lightning, that maybe this fire is, you know, I don't know. Talk amongst yourselves. But anyway, you obviously have a person in distress, didn't even have time to get dressed before she just ran out the door, and then you see that there are other people here that are following. A lot of people have correlated this card to the, you know, fall of the Tower of Babel. You know, do with that what you will. I don't personally make a lot of Christian correlations in my cards and my readings unless they're just blatant and can't be avoided, but I don't really look for them. But I can see where people would correlate that. And then here we have the Marseille, Tarot of Marseille. I'm not as crazy about, I'm not crazy about the Tarot of Marseille. Frankly, I don't really care for the artwork that much. But these gumdrop things are just making me nuts. Or bubblegum balls, whatever they are. I don't like it. But we do have the red and the blue again. The color schemes are similar. If you look here, we've got one guy in his tights and his blue outfit. And then on the other side, you have a, you know, guy with the red and the blue, and you have it going on here as well. So that's kind of interesting. Another thing to note here is that they're actually touching the ground. They're actually physically touching the ground. Don't see that a lot in the cards. So that is one thing I'm going to give props to the Marseille Tarot about, is that you actually see them making that connection to the ground as their world is kind of falling apart, and the bubblegum is just going everywhere. It's madness. Marseille, Tarot of Marseille. Yeah. Okay, so on to the modern decks. The first one, which is always the most similar. Guess which one it was? Oh, I know, always. The Tarot Illuminati. Right on down to those little yods. Look at that. He even got the yods in there. Way to go, Eric. And then we have the lightning over here. And the lightning is actually quite similar looking even. If you look there, I mean, it's even shaped the same way. The tower is a little bit different. You don't have that little crown looking top. This is more of an actual tower top. And then you do have, you know, the woman and the man that are falling out of the tower. I do want to note, though, that the woman doesn't have the crown falling. The man does. And in Pamela's deck, the woman has the crown on, not the man. So that's kind of cool. But again, with the tower, you see how it's just completely entrenched into the ground. It's like it's been built out of the rock. So it is very much firmly planted in the earth. So we definitely get that meaning out of this. And then you have the clouds. You have that doom and gloom aspect of it. The next one is, of course, the Tarot of the, Tarot of the Magical Forest. And this one is usually pretty Arthur weighty, and this one's no exception. It doesn't have quite as much detail in it as the other one does, simply because of just the style of the artwork doesn't really allow for it. In this case, we do have that same shaped lightning. We still have the fire shooting out the top. And then if you look here, you see a little rabbit and a little pig, which, if my memory serves correctly, no, the High Priestess was an owl, wasn't it? Huh. And I know the Magician was a rabbit, so we do have the Magician rabbit right here. You see that? That's the Empress. Not the High Priestess. It's the Empress. That's interesting. I wonder why they went with Empress rather than the High Priestess. That's kind of weird. But anyway, we've got the rain, but obviously, you know, there's rain and a thunderstorm giving that, you know, doom and gloom thing, but we don't have the yods. So we have let go of the yods. And in fact, I don't believe I see them in any of the other cards. Eric's the only one that preserved that from the Pamela Coleman Smith deck, as far as my collection goes. But this is a cute version. You know, like I said, this is a very childish looking deck. I love the artwork. It's very cute. My daughter loves it. Little Roo. Okay, next we have the Paulina Tarot. Now, this one has the phoenix. You know, she always likes to throw those phoenix in there when it has something to do with fire. So those have not gone lost. Our clouds up here actually have a face, and it's like, this is what's causing this. This is kind of the, you know, representation of God or universe that is making things happen and pushing this pushing this event onto these people, making them aware. And so you have a man here that's falling down, but there's no, oh, there's the woman. Okay, the woman is very small, and she looks like she's in the distance right here. And then the man looks like he's more in the foreground. He's kind of fallen at us, I guess. I don't know. One thing I want to note here is that we get very tree-like. You see this tree growing up next to the tower? You're going to see a progression in some of these cards, and I should have put this one later on in the deck because it does have the tree in it, but you're going to see we're going to kind of evolve into trees as we go through these modern cards. I really like using the tree as a representation of the tower simply because it does have such a close correlation to the earth, to that earth aspect, to the materialistic aspect, and you know, you think of trees, they're very grounded, they're very, you know, they're a part of the earth, they're in the earth, and so I think that that's a very, not, what am I trying to say? I like the way that that's represented that way. I think it's nice, it's different than the stone tower. It is made of stone, but there's just something about an old tree that, I don't know, I have more of an appreciation for that. As is per her normal thing, there's a lot going on in the card, so I can't just sit here and talk about this card for the whole time, but she definitely captured the tower aspects and, you know, got all of those significant elements in there. Next is Patrick Valenza's Deviant Moon Tarot. And here we have one figure that is still falling, and then we have one that's on the ground over here. So we have kind of a hybrid between the Pamela Coleman Smith rendition and the Tarot of Marseille, because one of them's on the ground. And they're kind of coming out of the side of the building like we saw in the Marseille Tarot. So that's a definite similarity there. This one's on its back, obviously, and you know, looks like it's choking, and this one's laying on its stomach, but you still get that same feeling. But then this guy hasn't hit the ground yet. So, you know, cool thing going on there. Again, we don't really have lightning so much as we look like we have kind of like an optic thing going on there. It's more like a beam than an actual bolt of lightning. It's kind of got a spacey look to it. And then in the background, he's kind of got this crackled texture, you know, that gives that, you know, additional feeling of something falling apart, of, you know, things being kind of taken down to their very raw elements. Next I have, and this one doesn't normally come so quickly in it, but it does have a lot of very, you know, weighty tower aspects, and that is the Steampunk Tarot of the Machine. Wow. Steampunk Gods of the Machine Tarot. Simply because it has the lightning coming up here, it's striking the tower, you see someone falling, you know, it has the basic elements. We don't see that the tower is actually being destroyed. It actually still looks like it's standing pretty firm, but obviously this guy's world got rocked. You know, his world's not the same anymore. Even though the tower still stands, his world has changed. So I kind of like that aspect. This is also called the Stricken Tower rather than just the tower. And we're going to see some other names as we go through these as well. Anyway, there you have it. Steampunk Tarot, Gods and the Machine. Okay, now we have Ciro Marchetti's. This is the Gilded Tarot Royale. We have the Tower. I kind of like this one. We see a dude, again, kind of like with the Minchiati, didn't even have time to put on his pants, and that's okay. But he's falling down, and we see that the tower has been blown to bits up at the top there. And, you know, just like we saw in the early cards, it's got what it kind of looks like a crown on top, you know, signifying maybe a fall from grace. You know, you think you have it all. Oh, no, you don't. Just when you think you have it all, that's when you realize you don't have. Yeah. So, anyway. There's that one. I think this is a beautiful card. And not just for silly reasons. Mostly for silly reasons, but also just because I just think it's really good artwork. But I'm kind of immature, so I'm focused on the wrong thing. Okay. The next one is Joie de Vivre Tarot. Now, on these, starting with the Ciro, because this one actually did have two people in it. If you look really closely in the Gods of the Machine, there's one person here, and then there's another one up here. This one obviously only has one person. If there's someone else, I don't notice. Whatever. And then with the Joie de Vivre Tarot, we have one person. So these going forward are going to only have one person. So we've lost one of our figures. So we don't have that, you know, you can't even grasp at the Magician and High Priestess aspect whenever you only have, you know, one person. I mean, I guess you could if you really reached and said, well, that person represents both, but whatever, I'm rambling. So We have a girl here that is falling, falling, falling. But what's kind of interesting here is that you look here, she's got these little butterflies and things that look like they're kind of softening her fall. And I like this about this card. We don't have a sudden burst of lightning. We actually have roots, it looks like. Some sort of a tree or plant is bursting this apart. And it's like the material world itself is breaking apart her reality and bringing things to a new perspective. And she's completely upside down. She's looking at things from a different perspective. And you see these butterflies here. It's almost like they represent hope. It's like just because your world gets shattered, it doesn't mean it's over. It doesn't mean everything's going to stop on its axis. You just need to look at things a different way and maybe approach them a different way. So I really, really like this card for that reason. Shift in perspective. Sometimes that's what the tower is all about. When you have a tower in your life and your tower's falling down, sometimes you don't look at it as destruction. Look at it as, okay, I need to approach things from a different standpoint because what I was doing is no longer working. This is the Archeon Tarot. Here we have the tower, and this one is so shiny it's always hard to tell. You don't have anyone falling, you just have someone sitting here kind of in a silent desperation, and in the background you kind of see a ruins. It looks kind of like a battleground almost, or like a bombed out city. And then you see this person here that's kind of in recovery or in shock maybe, trying to process what's going on, trying to shield themselves from the destruction. This deck is kind of notorious for being a little bit darker, and this card is no exception. But I still get the message. I get the fire. I get the destruction. I get that feeling of, hopelessness, but also, the fact that, she's not all is lost. Something there is salvageable. It's hard to see in the picture, but, surely there's something she could find. Now, this tower card is one of my favorites, and I'll tell you why. This is the Tarot of Vampires by Ian Daniels. And I love this card because this is how I like to think of, major challenges. I have been trying not to touch my eye, but oh my god, it is itching me, and I just have eye makeup on, so I just have to kind of... Excuse me, sorry about that. Anyway, I love this tower card because you see the lightning, you see the fiery feeling back here. You know that something bad's going on with this tower, even though it doesn't really look like it's being torn apart necessarily. But what I love is the fact that this guy here is like charging forward. It's like, yes, okay, I can't stay in the tower anymore. My time is up there. It's time to move on. It's time to get out of Dodge. And that's fine. He's charging forward. He doesn't look hopeless. He's not falling to his death. He's not sitting cowering in peril. He's taking a new challenge, and he's leaving the old behind and moving on to the new. And I really love that part of this card. I don't know what he was thinking when he made it, but that's what I get out of it, and I just love it. Love it. This is one of my all-time favorite tower cards. Now, this is from one of my new decks. This is the Victorian Steampunk Tarot. Very interesting deck. It's one of those decks where they mess with the suits and stuff, and they make them other things. It's like all bugs or something. I haven't really made a decision about this deck, whether I like it or not, so I haven't really done a review on it. But I hope to work with it some more, as the summer goes on. I have so many decks now. I bought so many at one time that I haven't really given them all a chance. So I really don't know when I'm going to get to the Steampunk Tarot, but they don't mess with it as much as like Wildwood Tarot or Gods in the Machine, and so it's not going to be that bad. But I'm going to have to get used to these other suits, but that's for another video. So anyway, here's the Tower card. Now, we don't have figures as far as people. This deck, I don't believe, has any actual people in it. It's all either photos of people or statues of people, representations of people, but not actual people. These are actually little statues, like little ivory statues or little marble statues or something. And we have the fire. We have, with it being tilted like this, we get the sense that it's falling over. We have the lightning. We have the destruction. It's actually a pretty good tower card. I like it. I like that it's a clock tower. Makes me think of the UT shooting. I'm from Texas. Yeah, we're all still talking about that. But, you talk about abrupt change and delusionment. UT clock tower shooting. That's it. Look it up. It's a good story. No, it's a horrible story, but it's an interesting story. Next, I have my Baba Studio Bohemian Gothic Tarot. And this is one, I remember going over this one in one of my Spread This Witches videos that we did. But this is an okay tower card. I'm not super crazy about it. We have the gargoyles there, and I know that they are a representation of like guardians. I don't know. I don't really have a lot to say about it. It's a beautiful card. But as far as, being the representation of tower, I see a beautiful building. I see some, beautiful gargoyles. I see one here that looks darker, and then I see one that looks more like kind of like an angel, like the light. So you have the dark and light, and then you have the lightning kind of shooting down in between. But I don't know. I don't get the same sense from this one that I get from others. However, you do kind of get a sense of the fire. You get a hint of fire because you see this reflection. It's like the light is reflecting off the bottom, so you know that there's a fire, kind of burning down here somewhere, but you don't actually see it in the card. I don't get a lot out of this card, though, so it's not top of my list of favorites. Here's another Ciro Marchetti. This is the Tarot of Dreams. This is a beautiful card. This one, the tower isn't being destructed at all. The lightning is just kind of zapping by, and then we still have this, this ray of sunshine. So, it does have that aspect of hope that we saw in the Paulina Tarot. The Joie de Vivre Tarot, also by Paulina Cassidy, though. But anyway, I like this one, but again, I want to see the tower being, I don't know. I mean, I know the one in the Tarot of Vampires wasn't being zapped, but that rider with the charging just completely overwrote that whole issue. With this one, I don't really see enough trauma. So as much as I love the picture itself, I think Ciro is an incredible artist, but I want to see a little bit of destruction, and I guess there is. If you look real close. Okay, look. You see right here? We've got a small breach here. I'm going to need more. I'm going to need more explosion. I'm going to need to see bodies, something. That's not enough. It's not enough. Sorry. The next one I have is the Vertigo Tarot. This is more on task. What the hell is that? Oh, it looks like what the hell is that? I don't know. We got a mystery something or other. I'm not really sure what this is. If anybody out there has this deck and has identified what this is, let me know. It has words on it. Maybe it's some kind of a headdress. I'm really not sure. We have the rocks. We have that earthy thing going on. And then we have our tower here. Flames, boom, smash, special effects. Very nice. I like it a lot. And we have this book falling down, which I think is really interesting because, it has to do with knowledge, things that we think we know. And obviously, like I said earlier, when you think you know everything, that's when you figure out that you really don't know much of anything. So don't ever think that you know everything because you're just inviting disaster. This is what happens. This is what happens, folks. Live and learn. All right, next we have the Tower from the Tarot of the Divine Legacy. Legacy of the Divine Tarot. I always say it backwards first. Also Ciro Marchetti's deck. And this one's pretty good. And this one he did a better job. We've got, what is kind of something to note here is that this blast is coming from underneath. It's not coming from up ahead. And so it's blasting it from underneath and it's knocking one of these legs off. And so we see that, the tower is in fact being torn apart and shit just got real. And so this is a good representation. I like it. I don't see any people. I kind of like the human aspect. And I forgot to tell you that when we got to the Victorian steampunk, we quit having figures in the tower, pretty much. So this one has no figures. I kind of like having figures. I like the human aspect. Bring a person in there. This is the light gray tarot, and this one does look like it has kind of figures. There's like these little ghosty figures that are falling. What I love about this is that it looks like a bunch of chairs stacked up or something. It's like scrap wood. I'm really not even sure what that is, but it looks like scrap wood. And if you look here, there's like a figure walking down here. Very cool picture. We don't see the destruction so much, though. So we just have these two jumpers, it seems like. So I don't know about this one. As far as, it representing the tower, I have seen better. Okay, the next one is kind of similar to it, so I stuck them together because it's not actually a real tower. It's actually made of other things. This is the Revelations Tarot. And, of course, let me remind you that this one is one of those decks. The whole deck is like this. You can turn it either way, and it kind of shows its own meanings. So here we're focusing more kind of on this part of the deck, of the card, rather. And so everything's kind of together, but it's being destroyed. You see that it's, there's this lightning coming in, and everything is starting to fall apart. It's very fragile looking. It's not really as solid as maybe it looks at a first glance. It's basically, it looks like a house of cards. So the tower in this is actually essentially, it looks like a house of cards. So that's kind of neat. And then, of course, when you turn it over for the reversal, it's just complete and utter chaos. It's just madness. Madness. Complete madness. Not helpful madness, not productive change, just complete chaos. Very nice. Next we have the Tower from the Inner Realm Tarot, and I put this in this section because it also kind of looks, I mean, they're all kind of similar. They're very boxy and put together, you know, kind of square looking. So that one kind of fell in with it. And then, you know, this one's kind of, you know, for this deck, this one's kind of more spot on than some of the others. You see this interruption. We have a very structured look. We have lots of straight lines, 90-degree angles. And then you have this swirly bit that's kind of interrupting the order. So this is a good card. I actually do like this Tower card. I don't like a lot of cards in this deck, but I do like this one a lot. It says Revelation, Awakening, Realization, Sudden Change. So very nice. Very nice. Next is another one of my new decks, and this is the Tarot of Sweet Twilight. And so here we have, we're going to start seeing trees now. So this one's kind of introducing it. This is where I should have put the Paulina Tarot because it has that tree aspect coming into it. Here we see that the girl and her teddy bear are sitting up in the tree, and they're watching the tower being ripped apart. So they're not necessarily victims of this situation, but they're observing it. You know, who knows? This might be their house. They may be, you know, seeking refuge, you know, ironically, in the Earth's gifts rather than, you know, the man-made aspects. Very interesting thing going on, what I just said there. That's something to think about. You know, the man-made needs, the man-made shelter is obviously failing them, and so they have sought refuge in nature. Chew on that for a little bit. Next, we have the Steampunk Tarot by Barbara Moore, and I love this tower card. I think it is gorgeous. We have the tower actually built right into this giant tree, or maybe it's a big chunk of earth that trees are growing out of. I think that's really more. It's really hard to tell. It looks like it's a big chunk of earth that the trees are growing out of. We've got lightning, and it's just blasting the hell out of the top of it. So we don't have figures, you know, like I said, I do like having people, but this is a really beautiful tower card, and, you know, it fits right in with the rest of the deck. It's just gorgeous. So very cool representation there. All right, and next we have the Wildwood Tarot, a deck that I absolutely love. I love the quality of these cards. I just like holding the cards. Yeah, good job on picking the paper and the ink. This is awesome. Anyway, here we have just a straight up tree, and we're going to see trees, I think, from here on out. So here we have, you know, basically a pine tree, which is known for its, you know, green all year round, very strong tree, and it is being zapped and basically blown apart from the top down by the lightning. Definitely making some changes there. Next, we have the Shadowscapes Tarot, and again, this one's kind of similar to the Steampunk Tarot in that you kind of have this tree mixed with the buildings. It's not all tree, but it's not all buildings. Here at the very bottom, you see where there's kind of a little village that is carved out of the earth itself. Looks kind of like an little ivory village, or maybe a marble stone something or other. And then we have all of these timepieces, which I always love to see in tarot cards, especially when they have to do with transition from one thing to another. I know I mentioned that in some of the death cards that we looked at, that I loved it. What was it? I think it was the death card for the Deviant Moon Tarot. You know, I love having the timepiece. Oh, and the Hanged Man. It had it in the Hanged Man. But I like seeing timepieces when it comes to something that has to do with progression. You know, the time has come for change. Sometimes we're not ready. You know, sometimes it's not a gentle progression like with the death card. Sometimes it's just going to slap you in your face when you're not really ready. And it may not even feel like it's fair. It may not feel like it's justified, but it doesn't matter. It is what it is, and it's your job to deal with it. Next, we have the Wildwood Tarot, and this is called the Blasted Oak. They do not call it the tower. They call it the Blasted Oak. Now, I like this one. The figure has come back, and we're going to start seeing figures again, I believe, in some of these. But this is a straight-up tree. There's no building. There's no man-made aspect to it. It is just straight-up a tree, and Homeboy is getting knocked down out of the tree. So definitely an abrupt change, and head first again. You know, there always seem to be head first into their new perspective, upside down, hangman. So anyway, there is the Wildwood Tarot. Next, we have the Tarot of the Hidden Realm, and this one has, looks like two fae that are falling from the blasted beach. So here we have the blasted oak, and we have the blasted beach. And this one also shows that, you know, there's a little bit of trauma going on. This dude is panicking. You know, that's what's interesting to me, is that the dude looks like he's yelling. And the chick is like, I'm falling to my death. La, la. And this dude's like, oh my god! So that's kind of funny. I think that's kind of a funny card. It's funny to me. 1977 England Alchemy Tarot. This one is a very dark deck, of course. And here we see a woman that is not necessarily like a tower, but it's like she is on fire. And this looks like some kind of like maybe a contract. Again, something we think we know. It's being destroyed. Nothing is forever. Nothing, folks, is forever. So that is, you know, seems to be the predominant message here, is don't get too settled in to anything as far as the material world, because it always falls apart at some point. It can do it gracefully, might not, probably won't, but it's going to change. The only thing you can count on is that it is going to change. Next is the Bonefire Tarot from Australia. And I don't speak in an Australian accent, so I don't know what that was I just did. But I'm not going to call it Australian because it sounded horrible. This is the Tower for the Bonefire Tarot, and I think there's a lot going on in the picture. But if you really break down all of the elements, it's actually pretty awesome. You see your lightning striking here. You see the crown kind of being thrown up into the air. This bell ringing here, I'm really not for sure what the significance of the bell is, but I do see that there is an hourglass here. Much love for the hourglass. And then we have, you know, it looks like someone is either dying or dead or something. The feet are crossed in a way that makes me think of, you know, someone passing on. We have a broken heart. You know, we have a clover here. There's a lot going on. Cards, you're gambling, you know, counting on something. This Bonefire, I think that may just have to do with just the deck itself. There's a lot going on. Oh, flaming arrow right here. That's also very interesting. So definitely lots of different things that have to do with change. We have an umbrella here also. You know, be prepared for everything. So very cool card. The artwork on this is really, really neat. Next we have the Gypsy Palace Tarot. This is another new one I have recently acquired. I'm not crazy about the artwork in this deck, y'all. I have looked through it a couple times. I'm sorry. I just can't. I don't get it. I really can't even talk about this picture because I just don't get it at all. So I'm going to leave that to one of you guys that appreciates and understands this deck and connects with it a little bit better than I do. I got nothing for this tower. It's a chick with a really, really long neck, and it looks like there's a man trying to embrace her, but he can't seem to. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what's going on. Sorry if I sound like a total jerk. I'm really not trying to. I don't get it. I'll be honest. And then the last one I have is the Hobbit Tarot, and I want to note something really interesting. This is the Tower card, and we did discuss the Devil card last week. I want you to look at these two. Look how similar they are. Isn't that crazy? And what's really crazy to me is that the Devil card actually has the building, and the Tower card has no building. So it's like, I have to wonder, did y'all mix up the pictures? Because this one shows a home being destroyed, a dwelling, a life. This is being torn apart, and this is not. So I don't know what to do with that. That's all my cards, y'all. I'm completely done. I'm finished. I just wanted to finally get that out there for y'all. Let me know what you think. I always love hearing y'all's thoughts. Do some VRs. I love y'all's VRs. Thank you so much for doing those. And I'm going to immediately get started on the next card. And I hope you all have a great evening, and I'll see you later.